Gun Galleria here. What we have today is, one of my favorite kind of firearms. This is a Krag, 3040 Krag, and this is Springfield. Nothing in there. Now this one's listed as a model 1896, Springfield Armory. So I picked this one up, which is a carbine, but I do not believe that this started life as a carbine. This front sight basically is one of those things that gives that away. But despite that, this, represents an interesting firearm. A lot of the typical Krag rifle things. You got, place for the cleaning kit in the back, all that. Metal butt plate. You got your sights. There's entire websites that talk about which models, which years had which front sight, which ones were carbines, the serial numbers. Interesting fact, Springfield 3040 Krags were used by, Teddy Roosevelt and Rough Riders. It's got that interesting side loading magazine. And, if you look at the way these operate, the rounds are coming up from the opposite side into the path of the bolt and then chambering. This entire bolt design is just so smoothly operating. And it just locks right up perfectly. And of course, when these were designed, they still had a magazine cutoff switch. Because there was still a belief of single shot, and that you wanted to load rounds one after another when these were in service, which, these days, the idea of giving somebody an AR and saying, well, you've got to load each round manually, but yeah, you can have a 30-round mag, but no, you're not going to just use that. That's not proper. Nobody will say that these days. But, the generals and everybody in charge at the time that these were being made still had the whole idea of muskets and everything else, your single-shot rifles back during the Civil War. So this was just kind of this idea of a single, magazine cutoff switch wasn't unusual to them, And, of course, you have your safety right here on the bolt. Very, European. Of course, I believe it's Krag-Jørgensen who came up with this. And so it's European, and, your safety, is much like you find on a lot of your Mausers and such, right there on the bolt, blocking the firing pin. So, why did I buy this one? Sometimes I pick things up just because they have interesting markings, and this one was no exception. So, this has checkering, but I was curious about this motif. You have a star and what looks to be a kind of a crescent moon. And whoever did this made sure to do it exactly the same way on the other side. I mean, I know somebody would go, well, it's trench art. Somebody was very, very careful about making sure that they got it pretty well lined up. I'm definitely not saying, factory or anything. No, somebody definitely did that. As to the reasons, I'm not sure, but they continued doing that further up. And then the one thing that got me about this one was the arrow. Pointing in the direction of the barrel. To the end of the barrel. almost like, this way towards the enemy. Like if you were shooting arrows at somebody, instead of you're shooting arrows, you're shooting bullets. I just found that kind of an interesting motif. I didn't know whether or not it was, somebody who was just Native American or something of that nature. I just thought that was kind of I've seen people carve their initials in stocks, and that really doesn't interest me at all. But this is a lot more intentional, and yeah, it just really struck me as something I really, had to add to the collection because it was odd, Plus, I just really love the Krag design. This is a really interesting, unique, robust design. And I know that when Ackley was doing you could find improved Ackley stuff, rounds. 3040 Krag was one that was there was a Ackley improved 3040 Krag. So, for the longest time, these, 3040 Krag was a very reliable, very well trusted hunting rifle. So, yeah, if you ever get a chance to pick up a Krag, definitely do it. They're just so interesting. Great design. Anyway, I appreciate you watching and seeing another one of the oddities that I just couldn't help but pick up along the way. If you want to see more content, like and subscribe, and I'm going to keep bringing out the oddities that I come across, and I'm always on the lookout. Have a good one.